I will admit something that is not going to be very flattering for you.
Use your ears. My ears are way, way more important in subject selection. And it's kind of fucked up to realize that you actually have a right to decide, how much you share of yourself, and then find out that, you've been an Instagram celebrity.
I've never seen you asking anyone. Normally you just come and stuff it into my face.
So now I'm imagining like a reverse fursuit where you can just feel all that lovely fur against your body, but the outside is just a giant Zentai suit sealing in all the flavor.
Hello and welcome to... And this is where I stutter because I realize I forgot how the podcast is called.
Oh no! This is off to a great start. Volk, I think we've actually started the podcast right now. I think this was it. So the next time you can read that script, and you can actually remember what your show is called. Can I swear on this? Are we doing that? Are you bleep it out? I'll try not to.
I think I will just prepare a script. If you really feel like it, I can do it for a show. But
why are you talking like we're not currently recording? This is airing. We're doing it. Well, then it's a good thing you haven't introduced yourself so far, since you haven't picked a name yet. Okay, but hey, the audience has heard everything. I know you're still talking. I know that you want to edit this, but I'm not going to let you. So why don't we introduce ourselves to the audience that has already heard us talking? I'm very pleased to be invited as a guest onto Photographer Cast, and I apologize for almost taking over as host here for a second. I'll leave it up to you now.
There's a good chance I will cut everything of this out.
Boo! Boo! You never let me have any fun.
I let you have all the fun and then I will cut it out. I am Farsi Photo, and as I've already introduced in some of the previous episodes, I'm a Fari photographer, and I've invited Khaki because I really love the way that he photographs, which is completely different from mine. Pinsel is unfortunately not present today because he's had some exhausting duties, so he's taking his well-deserved rest. But I'm perfectly sure that Khaki is a good host for the not host, guest. And I really wanted to invite somebody, so you have been my choice for this episode.
Oh, you make me feel so special, firstly. Thank you. Hi, I'm Khaki. I'm a furry photographer. I've been around for a while. And yeah, like describing our styles as very different is actually really, really, really accurate. Because I absolutely admire the way that you sort of construct these scenarios. I've seen you at work at various cons with models and props, and you're so energetic. And I'm like, this looks like, when I think about doing it, it seems so boring. But when you do it, it's really interesting. And then, I should try that. And then I go, no, this is the worst. No, thank you.
I can absolutely understand what you feel, because I really love seeing you akimbo with two cameras, shooting, and talking while you are shooting, stuffing the lens into people's faces.
With consent, usually.
Usually? I've never seen you asking anyone. Normally you just come and stuff it into my face.
There's a sort of default level of concept. From friendship, and the rest is also like body language, facial expressions, which are nicely international, but yes, okay.
That's nevertheless, I don't think that anybody minds, and I love what comes out, because this is the opposite of my pictures. They tend to be kind of sterile. They are well planned, they are well executed, but I'm only, as you said, I'm constructing a scene, I'm trying to make it perfect. Well, you are able to capture life. You capture moments, snapshots in their most flattering way, in their most flattering meaning.
So, I think there really isn't a distinction there. Like, I was trying to think of a way to describe, because I do reportage, I do from the hip, I do in the moment. I like spontaneous, like people being themselves, and in integrating myself into those moments, like at cons and parties, and that's really great. It's the opposite of like setting up a portrait shoot. And I was like thinking, like, is there an artistic parallel right, to distinguish what you're so great at and what I sort of keep doing it. But I couldn't really find a difference because both of them are impressionist. You give an impression of like a vibe, a scene. Like there are these, as you call them, snapshots. That's exactly what they are. They're minuscule moments that stand for a whole sort of scene and vibe and party and like the energy of a place. And that goes for you as well. Like I think about oh, have you ever seen Hindu art with like the god Vishnu or Krishna, like with 8 arms, like holding various things? Those aren't depictions of 8-armed gods. I'm sure that they have gods that have 8 arms, but they're supposed to be regular bodies. Except each of the objects that they hold represents something that's very important to this deity, and so they have to be holding all of them, and so they need. If they have to hold 8 things, then they have to have 8 hands to hold them. But it doesn't mean that right. So you have an image that conveys the information and energy and emotion of something, and whether that's selecting one particular 3-millisecond moment from a party, or spending it's actually the same amount of time almost. Like you spend hours on your portrait setups, right? All the prep and planning and logistics. I mean, I did a furry wedding recently. I came back with about 7,500 photos, and I selected about 300. So that was like say 9 hours of work in terms of photography, and then probably about the same in selection. So you wind up with just a few granules, a few grains of sand from the mountain that you've ground down.
But this is not unusual. Even if you are making a plan for the shoot, then you are not carrying back 7,500, but the ratio of waste to results is actually comparable. I usually choose about 1 picture out of 50 or out of 100.
Yeah, and I think that there's that maybe the distinction there is like when I do reportage photography, there are just way more subjects to include, right? I also try to be selective and not to have too many of the same subject, and certainly not the same scenario, right? Because if you have, oh god, that's the worst thing. You have 2 images that are both really, really good. The second best and the third best that you've ever taken, but they're quite similar. Then one of them just has to go and must never be seen by anyone, because it'll make the best one look worse just by being there.
I agree. I call this killing the beloved. I'm not sure if this is a good translation of the Czech term, but you are
kill your darlings. That's what you call it in English. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done.
You have to make the choice, because exactly as you say, you don't want 2 very similar pictures, because they are going to steal attention from each other. And I'm doing exactly the same, and I'm always having like, oh, and this has a better background, and this has better expression or pose, and okay, so I'm going to go with this one. No, maybe this one. And
wow, yeah, as a portrait like artist, that's got to be even worse for you.
Not necessarily,
because the differences are going to be so subtle.
Yes, they are very subtle. I actually devised a very simple rule for this. If there are 2 pictures that are really exactly the same, you can't decide which is better, because they are all so great that you can't decide. Take the first one; it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. So here's a I have quite the opposite technique. When I'm selecting photos, or when I'm going through all the photos just to like do the first culling, right? Pick the first 10%, reduce it to, or reduce it to 20%. I start from the end, because usually the last photo that I took, if I'm shooting, and I see that it's not quite right, I'll keep shooting until I get something that I'm happy with, and so the photo that I'm happiest with is most likely to be at the end. So that's where I start.
That's a good point. It makes sense, because I'm also of the experience that I tend to you put it nicer. Your way is saying the best ones are at the end. I tend to say that I usually start with shit. but the meaning is the same in both.
Yeah.
I guess I am. I'm talking about a situation where you are having two pictures and there are subtle differences. They are both great in some way, and you have already spent like a minute or two going back and forth and being indecisive. In that case, it doesn't matter. If you have really valued and considered everything and you have really put every criteria you can think about into the decision and you are still indecisive, that means that they are perfectly equal and you can toss a coin.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
my rule of thumb is I will just choose the first one and stop thinking about it and move on, because otherwise I'm going to be here for another day and still indecisive.
Yeah, see, that's something that a lot of photographers struggle with, and I totally get it. Like being overwhelmed by choice, because it's not just about picking one photo. It's about like removing all the others from existence. Because if you don't choose something to be shown, it might as well never have been taken. But like, I love that, right? It's taken me a long time to get there, but I love deleting photos. And yes, I always have like some sort of backup for emergencies, but I never need them. Right? I have data recovery software if I really need it, and like once or twice it's happened, but in extreme situations where a hard drive crashed and all the ones I selected were gone. But like there are so many photos that I wish I hadn't taken because they clearly weren't good, right? Wasn't the right vibe, wasn't the right lighting, it was out of focus. I just shouldn't have pressed that button, and I would have saved, a little bit of electricity and a lot of like time in my brain, wear and tear on the camera if I just hadn't taken that. So like, on the one hand, I want to maximize the number of photos I don't take, right? Because then you wind up with better results. But every time that I've tried to convince myself, okay, I'm going to stop using continuous drive mode. I'm just going to take single photos. I'm going to be because if it was good enough for Henri Cartier-Bresson, it's good enough for me. I'll just do 50 millimeters. I'll just do one click, and I try it for like an hour, and I'm just desperate. I can't do that.
My opinion about continuous drive mode is it's a sin, and the punishment is to have to select the photos.
Yeah. Well,
then you are having 300 almost identical photos from instead of one shot that would have been perfectly timed, and then you have to sort through them, and you deserve the suffering for using the mode.
Well, I've gotten very good at suffering because I keep going until I see that I've gotten what I wanted. And if I do the culling in reverse, then out of a set of like 100 different photos, like the first 5, that's probably where the keeper is. And then I can just scrub on and ignore the rest. I mean, I even do it on my phone. Because you've got a handy, like my phone has a handy film strip on the bottom. I have a Samsung phone. iPhone does the same thing. And you can just hold your finger on the film strip and just, if your phone's fast enough, just scrub through and see them coming through like not even like a slideshow, like what's it called? Like a zoetrope, almost a movie. And I just let my subconscious do it, and I'll just scrub through. Wait, there's something that I saw, and then there's like 2 or 3 wherever I stopped. Those are the ones worth looking at. Oh, very good microphone technique, by the way. I saw you just mute your microphone when you were coughing. Ooh, there was even a little light that went on your microphone. This is really cool.
Yes, it's to warn you that I'm coughing.
Earlier you brought up, or I brought up consent. That's actually maybe a really important one to talk about. Because
it's not so difficult for me, obviously, because usually when I'm photographing someone, it's, can you stand here? Can you look in this direction? Can you fly in the sky and wave down at me? And they do that. It's fascinating what you can make them do when you are holding a camera and pointing at them.
Okay, but half the time they paid you or asked you or hired you to do that for them.
That also makes consent much easier when they are paying you to photograph. They usually don't oppose the idea of being on camera.
So with my style of photography reportage, it's actually a little bit difficult. And there have been times when people have talked to me at conventions, anime conventions, whatever. You should really ask permission before you take a photo. This is more serious at cosplay conventions. where there is the expectation from some people that like the costumes, the performances is all it's about, and I understand that, and I know the times are changing. Generally, okay, I pay a lot of attention to what the photo policy is on various conventions, and they usually follow the same guidelines as being out in public. In most countries, you have some version of the right to, it's almost a right to citizen journalism, to record your environment, to capture it in some form. If you can see it with the unaided eye or ear, then you can record it in that capacity. All right, from that flows a lot of other sort of restrictions, like if you need a telephoto camera and a periscope to peek into someone's bedroom window, no. That's not okay, because that's not something that you can see from street level. No, but like, I mean, I see you giggling.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of these.
It sounds like a funny idea.
And so, like,
we're going to try it.
In a lot of venues, that sort of counts the same way, because you are like in public, you can be seen by people, and therefore you can be recorded. Because, and this is a really important one, when you're out in public, you don't have an expectation of privacy. Now, that is a flexible concept, or rather, it has a gradient. Where do you have an expectation of privacy? And it's culturally determined as well. Like someone who's breastfeeding their baby. Babies need to eat, and sometimes you don't have the opportunity to get privacy. But in that moment, you have an expectation of privacy culturally, because if you have an exposed breast, it is culturally appropriate to not look, and therefore also not photograph. So, like, all that in mind, conventions generally have a photo policy which maps to the outside world. Yeah, if you're gonna walk around here, you have an expectation to be photographed. You can at any time ask not to be included. You can ask for it not to be published. You can ask for it to be removed. But like laws about on the one hand, the right to record, and on the other hand, the right to privacy, and thirdly, like the right to be forgotten, as exists in Europe when it comes to digital matters. Those are in flux. Like, those are still being tested, and I think through being like a decent person and communicating with people and like reading up on the rules of a convention, you can do a decent job. And ultimately, if someone's unhappy, they can contact you, and you can be gracious about that. It's an interesting challenge on the reportage side of things.
I have to admit that my attitude to this is kinda, how to put it, blunt. If you are on a con, you probably did consent to be photographed in the rules of the con. And if you write me after the con, hey, I'm on this picture and I don't want to be there, I'm going to remove you. Either remove the picture or I will just edit you out of the picture.
Yeah.
That's it for me. My style of photography is different. The main subject is usually very much consenting, because he's very well aware that I'm photographing him.
Yeah.
But to be honest, how often does it happen to you that somebody says, I don't want to be on this photo, or I don't want to be on a public photo from a con? Because to me, it happened exactly 0 times, and I'm photographing for like 10 years.
Oh, probably about 5 times in the last 5 years. 2 of them were communicated beforehand. Like, it was at a wedding. That's where I sort of learned, okay, there's such a thing as people being uncomfortable with photographs. It's also, I photograph a lot of weddings. Well, not a lot, but I photograph weddings. But also, I was at a convention you may have heard of. It's called Chesver. And
yeah, I did hear about it.
There was one year where there was a guest of honor who was a VTuber who specifically asked not to be face revealed. Apparently that's a term. I didn't know that before. But so most times that she was out in public, she would be in I gendered her, I'm sorry. She would be out in her fursuit or in a mask. And sometimes she would be without. And like afterwards, she contacted me, and she went on the group like, hey, anybody who has a photo of me without my mask, I don't want that out in public. And okay, I get that. That's a choice that you can, and I respect that. Of course, it gets real difficult if we wind up with, out of 300 people at a con, there's 150 people who have that preference. Like, can we still do reportage? Can we accommodate that in the rules? Probably not there yet.
My bluntness is mostly motivated by the fact that I think that there are very few people like this. I would say maybe 1 in 1,000 or something like that. And yes, they do exist. It's fair to account for that. It's fair to try to humor them when they say, I don't want to be published. Okay, I will either remove you from the photo or I will remove the photo. But I don't think that it's necessary to bend over backwards just in case that someone like that is somewhere around you.
I mean, not yet, but it's a developing conversation, right? Because there's a new generation coming up. Like I think about, I have nibblings of various ages, heading toward 12, and like I'm realizing that these kids and the kids who are slightly older than that, like they live in a very different like relationship with photography than we do, because like a lot of them have been just publicized in their parents' like Facebook, right? They've had their photos shared with the masses for years since they were infants without their consent, and now they're learning about bodily autonomy and the right to privacy, and like it's kind of fucked up to realize that you actually have a right to decide, you know, how much you share of yourself, and then find out that, you know, you've been an Instagram celebrity. Now, there's this, I was going to say an extreme scenario, but it's not even very extreme. There's lots of people who take lots of pictures of their children and share them. And that's changing out of this idea like, hey, this, like, yeah, I have a beautiful child. We had a lot of fun. I want to share that with my family. I want to show off how cool we are as a family. But also, this is a whole ass person who's going to want to make decisions about themselves when they grow up. And I shouldn't make those decisions for them. So, you know, those attitudes are going to continue to change. And I'm going to be open to that.
Let's see, it may change, but I'm not going to preemptively start bending over backwards just in case that things will start to change. I don't know. Like I said, my style of photography doesn't usually require, I mean, it does require consent, but it's kind of implied, because when I tell you I would like to photograph you, can you stand here? Then the most natural thing is to say, no, I don't want to be photographed by.
Yeah.
Sure, fine. I'm mostly photographing fursuiters. I know very few fursuiters. Very, very, very few fursuiters. No, that's not true. I don't know any fursuiter that.
Yeah, I was going to
like
say,
to
what's the idea? Like, if you want to not be seen and wear a costume like that, like, I don't want to make any sort of broad claims about, you know, a huge amount of people that exist. There might be people who. Oh, now I'm thinking about how Inuit people, they wear fur clothing, but the fur is on the inside so that they get to enjoy it. So on the outside, it's just meat. So now I'm imagining like a reverse fursuit where you can just feel all that lovely fur against your body, but the outside is just a giant Zentai suit sealing in all the flavor.
This is an interesting idea. I'm sure that Rule 34 applies. I think I'm going to skip. I prefer fursuits with their fur out.
See, I prefer people outside of fursuits, because like fursuits are fantastic. They're really beautiful, but they have like the impression of life in a still photo needs to be very, very carefully generated, because, you know, fursuiters are advised, don't stand still, because then it's just creepy, right? Because then it doesn't look alive. So experienced fursuiters and people who really vibe with it are constantly moving, just constantly keeping the silhouette in motion, keeping the eyes in motion. So it doesn't matter that they're painted on or whatever, right? Fursuit quality really, really doesn't matter. It's all about the performance. But in photos, that's gone. You don't have motion. So you have to, like, the eyes have to make sense in that moment, and the body language has to make sense in that moment. And for humans, it always does, because we're humans. We look at the things that we're interested in, and we make the facial expressions that show how we feel. So yeah, it's kind of tricky with fursuits.
And that indirectly leads me to what I wanted to start with. We are about two-thirds through the allotted time. I really like your style. So, like I've said, what I usually see you doing is you are holding either two cameras at once, or a camera and a flashlight with diffuser. and just jumping around people and photographing from extremely close distance, and catching the life, the moments of life, which I absolutely adore. I'm exactly the opposite. Let's say I want to try it. Can you give me a few recommendations of what I should or shouldn't do?
Okay. Obviously, respect for people, getting some form of consent, that can be done through body language, right? Eye contact, holding up the camera, looking real happy and excited, and you get some kind of feedback. That's okay. And if there's a group of people, they'll usually turn toward you. They'll be interested. The most important is, like, aside from the technique, not to like dampen the energy of that moment, right? If they've included you, it's important to be there with them, cheer, talk with them, like, and also announce when the interaction is over, when you're moving on. So greeting and departing, those are really important, so that you preserve the energy, and that you don't wind up with photos where people are just wondering why the fuck this weirdo is here with the camera, and oh, he's not looking at us, he's looking at his photos. So that.
I'm starting to understand why I'm so bad at it.
Well,
Because
now this is
when I join the crowd, I immediately dampen the energy even without camera.
that is not true. I've seen you emceeing, and it's the same kind of. No, it's not. It's not. It's not. It really isn't. You make yourself part of a group. You make yourself vulnerable and big at the same time. You create the sort of vibe that you are welcome. You feel it. That's exactly what you should do. So
actually, a good point. Yeah. Now that you say that, if I treat them as audience, not as a group that I've joined,
yes,
then it starts making sense to me.
That I've never thought about it like that. That is exactly what it is. It's a performance for an audience. And then you've got a connection, right? Because they know, okay, here's someone who's actually sort of doing a performance for me as well, and I'm involved in this, and we move in. Now, describing the subject as an audience and you as an MC, that's really, really great. So next is technique. Now, I like prime lenses. I love prime lenses because I know how they look.
We share this.
I shoot wide open because it's just like that, and I like lenses that I can trust to shoot at maximum aperture, and I like the separation, because it's whatever's in focus is isolated from the background, is sort of elevated, and it creates this depth. Like the photos that I'm most proud of almost aren't photos; they're like holograms. You sort of feel like you can move around them. And that's the vibe I want to create, this impression. So, light is the absolute most important thing that determines like whether this photo is going to rule. The next up is the subject. Yeah, no, stick with me. First is the light, then there's the subject, and then there's everything else: background, camera choice, lens, like flash, like whatever. Actually, flash follows under the light. It happens way more often that I throw away a photo that has a great expression but poor light than the other way around.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't going to contradict you. I, of course, understand the importance of light. The thing is that usually when I see you photographing, it's late evening or night, and there isn't much light around. I'm wondering if it's all your flashlight, or if you actually think about the lighting before you start taking pictures. If you choose a group that is well lit.
No, it's the other way around. I choose the light, and then I wait for things to come to me. Like when I go to when we go out to dinner, I sit with my back to the window, and then whoever sits across from me will be the best lit. I do this in any kind of group setting. Whatever, there's a big event or whatever, I pick a place where I'm with my back to a window and there's nice light streaming in, and then I just see who wanders by. Because like making sure, or like if there's an overhead skylight, I love that. That's great. A nice atrium, stairs. So yeah, light with that hits the subject first. Nice diffuse light. That's why, open windows without sun shining in are so great. But actually, so choose the location first and then see what comes by. Like I do this as well at there was a particular wedding that I did where the couple really wanted everyone in the photo, and I'm like, this there's 85 people. I can barely remember people's names, when I see, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. And I asked online for some advice, and I got some great advice from a wildlife photographer. The wildlife photographer says, when I want when I've spent money to go to like the Serengeti, and I want to see a zebra and a gazelle and a tiger and whatever, I go to the waterhole.
I was expecting this. So you are going to the
buffet. I'm going to the buffet and I sit behind the food for 2 hours and everyone comes by as they're walking up, of course, before they actually have food. And then I got everyone because they're all hungry.
It's both funny and clever. I appreciate it as a former wildlife photographer, by the way.
Right. Oh, well, awesome. So yeah, pick your location. That's actually really, really important because if the vibe is good, fun people are going to come by. Next one, use your ears. My ears are way, way more important in subject selection than my eyes because you can hear people laughing. And then you know they're having a good time, and that's where I want to be. That's where I'm going to integrate. That's a picture worth taking. Or they're yelling, or they're singing, or whatever. Like, I'm very attentive to the sounds that I hear people making. If they're just sort of murmuring and talking with each other, then usually it's a private conversation. And A, it's not a very interesting photo, and B, they don't want me there. But when they're loud, those are the moments that I key into, and then I get into motion.
This is fascinating, and I'm perfectly honest about that because I will admit something that is not going to be very flattering for you. My impression was that you just jump around people with the cameras and basically spray and pray. And
like that,
because this is what it looks like to a person that sees you once in a while. It's very interesting to hear what kind of preparations and planning is behind it, because what you say means that you are also kind of constructing the scene. You're just less intrusive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm creating the circumstances for success.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I think a lot about, I think it was Tiger Woods. Like, the difference, like, golf is a lot about luck. It's just when you practice a lot, you get luckier more often, right? The same reportage photography. A lot of it, is spray and pray. There's I throw a lot away, but I really study the results that I get. I see where the photos that I keep are different from the ones that I don't keep. That's why I figured out. I used to buy a lot of lenses. I spent a lot of money on lenses, and then I realized, okay, 90% of my favorites are with a 35 millimeter and a 85 millimeter. So why even own any of the others? And sometimes there's a good reason for it, ultra wide for a family portrait. But like it's a lot of money for something that you're only going to get in maybe 5% of the photos that you currently aren't taking from. And also like
which of my 5 lens to exclude because they are heavy. So yeah, I feel you.
I mean, same thing, right? You do a statistical analysis almost, and I realized like when there's a dinner, I never keep any photos where the subject is sitting with their back to a window. Okay, so I never need to bother photographing anyone who's sitting back against the window because I'm just not going to love it. So I sit there instead. So it's creating the circumstances for luck to flourish, and then jump around like a spider monkey and flash everyone.
I love that. I love seeing you photograph because you are so animated and so energetic.
And it's that is also still like engineering the scene. I'm watching the composition of the people that I'm photographing. I want to make sure that they're included. I'm also really watching the edges of the frame because I want to avoid distractions along the edges. Your brain really gets hung up on incomplete shapes. So I give this advice a lot. If you can't get a whole person's body in, and you don't want to get the whole body in, cut the bone, not the joint. So make sure, like, if the knee is at the edge of the frame, that's actually really frustrated for your brain because it wants to finish the rest of the leg and it doesn't quite figure out how to do that. But if you cut them off mid-thigh, mid-calf, mid-bicep, it's a much more comfortable thing to look at. Your brain can fill the rest in and so focus on the face of the subject. And this also goes for like exit signs, which have to be illuminated and they have to be green and annoying. I want to keep those out of frame, so I also place myself somewhere where they're not visible. And then there's the handheld flash or the LED, where I get to control the light, which is sometimes really, really, really important. I did a wedding recently, a different furry wedding, where the reception was held in a very dark bar. It was really cool, but they had a giant disco ball with different colored lights beaming out. And so everyone had leopard spots in blue, purple, and green, like from just everywhere. And it was a nightmare, but it was also awesome. It looked really cool. So I brought all my toys. I have a big LED light that I can use, and I can set the color temperature. I have flashes with diffusers that I can hold in one hand. I wound up in that case bouncing the flash off the ceiling, even though it wasn't very light. But that gave me just a pool of nice, clean light for the subjects to be bathed in, while the background could still be crazy disco purple and blue. And I found that gave the sort of best results for me. Normally, I really like my handheld flash with a big round diffuser, but I find that harder with larger groups of people because it. Okay, so the quality of light, as you know, really depends on the size of the light and the distance to the subject. Because the closer it is, the more contrast there is. You know, I hold the light close to your face. Your nose gets like 10 times as much light as the back of your ear. So you get, a really front-heavy thing. If I hold it farther back, you're much more evenly lit, but the shadows are sharper because it isn't as big and diffuse anymore. So those are things that work for individual people. But when there's a large group of people, I have to hold it like way back in order to get some kind of even. It wasn't the best result. So then I like to bounce it off the ceiling.
I like how I immediately jump to you should use a bigger diffuser, like and the 80 centimeter would be perfect. And then I was like, yeah, sure, handheld.
Yeah, see, right, that. And you also have to be able to I have to be able to clip it to my belt and turn around inside a crowd. Yeah, all of these things are to be thought of. Like I use a capture clip, a Peak Design capture clip on my belt for the camera, and I have like a Spider Pro, what's it called, Black Widow, a little plastic clip with a little nubbin that I've glued to my flash that I on the back of my belt, and that's where I put the flash. But there also, I always also bring a big LED light, because even though I don't think they're as good, you don't get the kind of like freezing and sharpness that you get out of a flash. But there are people with photosensitivity who, even if it's not triggering, right, to epilepsy, just seeing the flash makes them worried about what can happen to them, makes them feel unsafe. And I don't want that for people. So like in these environments, I can't check beforehand necessarily. I do at weddings. At weddings, I send an email to introduce myself and like say, these photos are for you and you're all safe. Also, if anybody has photosensitivity, please let me know and I'll make sure that it doesn't happen at all. And at one or two cons, like I've had situations where people went up to me, hey, I'm actually not super comfortable with the flash. No worries. And then it just goes for the rest of the con just so they can always feel safe. Because you can get sort of the same results from an LED panel. They're also nice and big. Just got to get your subjects to hold still a little better. Good luck with that.
I've actually been using these as well, and I switched to those huge diffusers for my photos because apparently I can ask the assistant, please carry it there. I know it's heavy.
You have do you know what professionals call that? They call it a VAL. A voice-activated light stand.
Yeah. I know the phrase, and I've introduced my assistants to exactly this thing. Well, we are actually already over the usual time, which I expect to happen because being with you, it's difficult to stop you from talking, and it's very difficult to try because you're super interesting. To conclude, would you have a most favorite photo or two that you would be willing to share? I mean, the situation that it was taken in or a story connected to it.
I totally am not prepared for that. Well, okay. One of my favorite photos is of my own family. One of my favorite uncles and his family. My aunt in a wheelchair. My cousins, all girls, sort of dressed fine. It was at a family wedding. And I was taking family portraits for everyone, but my family, they're goofballs, and so everyone was being silly. We really, really did our best to have some serious ones and some silly ones. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but I think it was my uncle who cracked a really, really short joke while I was trying to take the serious photo, and like everyone cracked up. And it's the most amazing thing. So my uncle is there, sort of picking his nose. My aunt looks like she's about to launch herself out of her wheelchair and fly. Uh, t- my my cousin, who's a photo model and a beautician, looks like she's wetting herself, and you can see right down her tits. And like they're all, and everyone in my family has this on their mantle, and we all love it because this is who we are. Um, it's so glorious. Everyone is so beautiful, despite the fact that they're all making these weird rictuses of laughter and like the snot coming out. This is life and beauty, and it's precious. And it's one of the favorite photos that I've ever taken. I've seldom been prouder of it.
I can see why, and this is exactly what a setup photo is never going to bring you, because yeah, these moments of life are really what I love about pretty much everything I see you producing.
Oh, thank
Thank you very much for being a part of this, and thank you everybody that was listening. This was Khaki, who I forgot to introduce.
Okay.
So thank you everybody for listening. I'm Farsi Photo, and we will be back hopefully with Pinsel again in 2 weeks.
Bye.